Well, what is going on, everybody? Welcome, everybody, into the Overreaction Buffalo Sports Show on the Overreaction Sports Network, powered by the Believe Podcast Network. My name is Joe Miller, and you can find me on Twitter at Joe Miller Wired, alongside my co-host for this evening, former Buffalo Bills offensive lineman, as I call him, the Swiss Army knife of the 90s Buffalo Bills offensive line. Ladies and gentlemen, Jerry Ostrowski. You can find him on Twitter at Ostrowski_Big O. Please do us a favor. Please do Jerry a favor. Please, not me, do Jerry a favor, and please hit that like button. Subscribe. Do all that good stuff. Tell a friend. And if you're listening to this in podcast form, please, same thing. Please hit the like button. Hit the subscribe. Feel free to leave us any sort of a comment or feedback or a review or whatever has you kind of in the mood to leave. But it is so good to have every single one of you joining us right now for this live vidcast on YouTube and joining us in audio form as a podcast as we bring you some current information as it pertains to our beloved Buffalo Bills, starting with the fact that the Buffalo Bills have signed Christian Benford. I'm so glad to be wrong about this one, Jerry. Not only signed, but signed for a number that was a little bit eye-popping to me, as they signed him for 4 years, $76 million, less than $20 million AAV, annual average value of his contract. It's good to have it done and have him in the fold. Jerry, how you feeling about that one?
Feeling really good. This is a signing I thought was a priority. I thought it was even more of a priority than some of the other ones they've already made. I thought this was a guy that, your draft room, your scouts went out and found this gem, this diamond in the rough, so to speak. You drafted him in the 6th round. You've turned him into a guy that should have been in the Pro Bowl this year, and he was not, but he should have been there and has been playing at an extremely high level. And now you've signed him, and again, just an amazing contract. Another guy, another key piece to the puzzle that signs for a probably below value deal. I think one of the things that people need to understand about this is, Benford coming in is 24 years old.
Mm-hmm.
This is a 4-year contract, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he's up for negotiations again at 27, 28 years old. So he's going to get himself another good contract under the age of 30, which is that Mendoza line in the NFL. Over 30, harder to get those long-term, high money deals. It was I personally, I was shocked. I didn't think we would get him at this price, and we did. Amazing job by Beane and those guys, and it just shows, to me anyway, the importance of franchise, the importance of team, the importance of locker room, and guys that are willing to take a little bit less to stay a part of something that's really, really good. And I think that's awesome.
How much of this goes back to, and obviously we heard it publicly once recently from Josh Allen, but as the leader of this football team in the locker room, as the guy, that dude, as we like to call him here on Overreaction Sports, how much is Josh Allen coming out and saying, what do I need another $5 million for? I've got a house. Right. I've got a car. I'm taken care of. Like, why do I got to suck up? How much you've been in a locker room? How much of that weighs into some of this? Because you've got to feel like he is vocal about it, even maybe in the locker room, right? Maybe calling these guys saying, we need you back. Like, how much do you need? We need you back.
I don't think it's that. I think it's the fact that he is him. I mean, I think it's the fact that he's arguably the best or second best quarterback in the league, in a league that is driven by that position. And now you understand that you have a chance, if your front office adds some more pieces, which obviously, as we head towards the draft in April, they're going to do to strengthen the defense. If you're guys, and I think it's a big misconception about professional players, not all of them, a very, very small amount of them, are about the money. Yes, you want to make the most money you can make, but also, if you're a competitor, you want to win, and you're getting opportunity to play with a guy that is generational at the quarterback position, and you don't have that across the league. And while, yes, you can go somewhere else and probably make a few more $1 million, are you just sitting there in purgatory every year, flailing, knowing you're not going to be that type of team? And I think that's the biggest thing. It's not necessarily Josh taking less money. I mean, come on, guys. I mean, we're talking about what, $250 million or whatever, and 225 million of it is guaranteed.
For Josh, 254.
254. And then you've got the fact that, and I'm going to bring his outside personal life into it. You've got him in a fact where his significant other, she don't do too bad for herself either, right? So, I just think that is the biggest key is if you're a competitor and you want to win and you've got these pieces in place, you don't necessarily want to bail on it.
Yes, it's got to be super bizarre. There is a not like a Swifties type of group, not quite as probably voracious as the Swifties, but there's a group of people out there that love Haley Steinfeld, and they've got to be completely bewildered by the fact that she's dating this football player that when it first started, none of them knew who he was, and then they find out like he's worth way more money than she is. It's got to be a little strange to people that think movie stars and Hollywood people are like the stuff, right? So
right.
I will never fault, I've said it here on this show, I will never fault a player for getting as much money as they can, especially when you're talking about somebody that wasn't a first or second round draft pick, because even with the slotting, the first round draft picks and the second round draft picks they make millions of dollars. A sixth round draft pick in the NFL, which Christian Benford was, which we're going to talk about here in a minute, didn't see that. He didn't see millions of dollars. He didn't see a gigantic signing bonus. And they only get to strike once, and he's going to get the opportunity, hopefully, to strike twice. But generally, they get one shot. And so go get your bag and take care of your grandkids, right?
Right, exactly. I mean, I don't fault any of them for doing what they're doing. That's another reason, they're putting their bodies on the line and their livelihoods on the line more than anybody. I mean, it's a very physical game.
Yeah.
And when you retire, you deal with the repercussions of that. And we're all fine with it.
Yeah.
But it's a simple fact that, again, just amazed that we've got him in a deal that seems undervalued. Now, we could have played it out and let him play the year, but then it would have cost us probably $8 to $10 million more a year if we did that. And this is to me the smart thing to do now in NFL football. I keep talking about the Eagles. The Eagles have done that, giving guys deals early that seem like too much, but understanding that eventually they're going to be way undervalued.
Yeah, exactly. And looking at kind of how we got here as it pertains to Christian Benford getting signed, because I felt it was very left field. I was not expecting it. I don't think anybody necessarily, and it almost dropped a little bit quietly too. It dropped on Saturday. I think I saw it on I think I saw it on YouTube or TikTok. I think I saw it on TikTok first. And I was like, wait a second. And then I checked the news. I Googled it. Sure enough, he had gotten signed. But Sal Capaccio reporting that just from the Brandon Beane press conference, when it comes to a contract extension for James Cook, because that's kind of where we thought everything was at, kind of the urgency and the heat was, Bills general manager Brandon Beane said on Sunday that he doesn't expect anything to happen anytime soon. He also touched on a variety of other topics while at the NFL league meetings. I think you had told me that there was an aspect in that conference of which I did not get a chance to watch yet, where he said, look, we weren't getting any motion there, so we just moved on to the next guy.
Right, exactly. I think and if you watch that snippet from that press conference, and it was really kind of an impromptu press conference. It wasn't a official. It was more of a grab them, have some time, and sit down and talk to them. But when you watched it, basically they went to their guys and said, "This is what we want to give you." There was no movement in the James Cook camp as far as wanting to accept what they had to offer. So they moved on to the next guy to see what he would take, and Christian Benford obviously was one of those guys, and they took it. Now, you had Terrell Bernard, you had Groot, you had others that are in that mix as well, right?
Yeah.
So it almost to me seemed like they had an allotment of money, and they said, this is what we think we can do for each guy. Do you take it or you don't take it? And obviously the Cook camp, it was below his $15 million that he wants a season. So they moved on to a guy that I think is a much more important piece to the puzzle in Christian Benford as a starting cornerback.
Yeah, so let's talk real quick. I know you've got some numbers, some information from PFF, some grades on Christian Benford. Go through, if you could, just for real quick, just kind of like what his last couple of years looked like. Just because as a 6th round draft pick, our expectations were Kaiir Elam, where Kaiir was going to be the guy, and now Kaiir Elam isn't even on this roster anymore. And lo and behold, Christian Benford signs a relatively lucrative deal a new 4-year extension with the Buffalo Bills. So let's talk about kind of like Christian's game the last couple of years and how we got here.
Well, I think we need to start at the beginning of this thing. And I think the most important thing is when you go back to 2022 when Christian Benford was drafted, each prospect gets what they call a prospect grade. Okay. That's a grade of this guy's going to be a superstar, perennial Pro Bowler. This guy's a free agent, a possible roster guy, practice squad. There's all these different grades. Benford comes out of Villanova, 6'1", 208 pounds, with a 5.95 prospect grade, which correlates to or translates to an average backup or a special teamer in the NFL. And, you look at some of the things that they talked about with Benford, weaknesses, average mirror and match footwork in early stages, needs better patience with feet and hips and press, pad level creates drift, all these different things they talk about, slow in recovery. Then you look at strengths, did a great job in reading play development, all this different stuff. So even back then, Benford, the 6th-round pick, obviously his prospect grade is directly proportional to when he was drafted. But then you go ahead and you look at Benford, and this season, he's had 3 seasons in the NFL. And let me real quick, just to kind of give you some background on PFF grades, which I think are really, really good. I don't think it's the be-all, end-all, but I also think it's a really good comparison to the other guys that are playing your position in the league. PFF average play is a 60%.
So if you're as an average guy,
you're doing your job, you're average, you're not doing anything great, you're not doing anything bad, it's a 60%.
Gotcha.
When you look at Benford this year, his overall grade was 82.6.
Wow.
Which is really good.
Yeah.
Okay, they consider 70s good, 80s obviously better than that. 90s are your kind of elite dudes. Like a Myles Garrett comes in at like 93, 94%.
Right.
Okay. You look at Benford, 82.6 in his overall grade. His run defense was 69.3, just shy of 70. His coverage grade, however, was 82.8. That was good enough for 6th out of 222 quarterbacks. His overall grade of 82.6 was 5th out of 222 quarterbacks. And that was with some limited snaps, considering that he did have some injuries. I think he played just over 1,000 snaps, which is a lot of snaps, but still not a ton when you're talking about 17 games and playoffs. So he did have some snap. The snap numbers were down a little bit this year. If you go back to 2023, his snap numbers were at 837. So obviously he played a little bit more. His grades were right there again. You looked at, over 80% for his defensive overall grade. His coverage grade, again, was over 83%. Tackling is a big deal in a cover 2 defense. 83.7 in 2023, 89.4 in 2024. So just a lot of really, really good things out of Benford, a guy who was considered a backup special teams guy who's just developed into a wonderful player in the NFL.
Yeah, more from PFF. PFF has a list of the 2024 corners. Number 1, Cooper DeJean.
Yeah.
Bills could have had him. 86.3. Patrick Surtain, the second at 83.8. Number 2. Tied for 3rd is Garrett Williams from the Cardinals. Trent McDuffie from Kansas City. 5th, Derek Stingley Jr., who just got a $30 million AAV contract. And number 6, Christian Benford.
Right.
And they say Benford has continued to solidify himself as the Bills' number 1 corner. Followed up his breakout 2023 season with another strong showing in 2024. Tackling was his highest graded category, as his 89.4 PFF tackling grade trailed only Patrick Surtain Jr. Benford has missed just 9 tackles in his 3 years as an NFL player, and 6 were in his rookie season. So he's missed 3 tackles in 2 years. It's impressive what he has done with where he was drafted, and kind of like that overview. So from NFL.com, where you were reading his weaknesses, NFL.com in 2022 had him as a round 7 priority free agent. So there was an aspect that there was a wonder if he was even going to get drafted. Their overview for him: a 4-year starter with good size and football IQ. Benford plays the game with good physicality and coverage and in-run support, which I think that's obviously clearly his strength, that whole run stopping ability, which probably is what keyed the Bills in on him when they were drafting him in the 6th round.
I think the biggest thing out of Benford, and obviously, like you said, he's a very good tackler in the running game. He gets guys on the ground. He's not when you start talking about tackling in the cornerback spot, is he a grab and drag, or is he a get your shoulder in and get you on the ground guy?
Right.
That's what he is. He's not a grab and drag guy. He's not a grab on the side and those types of things. And if you watch or read some of the cornerback analysis of the 2025 guys, they'll say that, solid tackler, puts his head in there, puts his shoulders in there, or is he tackling is a little bit iffy? He's a grab and drag dude. I think the biggest thing about Benford is the fact that, and it's funny because some people even considered possibly moving him to safety when he made the league because of his ability to tackle. But, when you watch the cornerback position in Buffalo, or you listen to some different things, tons of reads, tons of, sifting through routes, sifting through combinations, tons of checks at the line of scrimmage. So a lot of times quick processors mentally, anything they might have physically limiting them athletically gets overridden by anticipation and instincts. And I think that's the one thing that we don't talk about enough with draft prospects, Joe, is the intangibles you can't see, the attributes you can't see. We want to always comment on the 40 time at the combine, the vertical jump, the standing broad jump, the 3-cone. We want to talk about benches, but we don't ever talk about the things you can't see. And I think Benford is one of those guys that's elite in that area. Mentally, he gets it. He understands the game. He understands what the Bills want him to do. It's the biggest difference between him getting a contract extension and former first-round pick Kaiir Elam being in Dallas. I truly believe that. Kaiir probably every day of the week is a better athlete than Christian Benford. But when you tie all these other things into it, Benford is an elite processor, and he's able to process all the things that they want him to do at that cornerback spot. And because of it, he's been awarded with a great contract.
You are a prime example of what I'm about to say, just in a sense of it's 2025. Like, you would feel like, is with all the metrics, with all of the statistics and the analytics and all the 3-cone drills, and like how high can he jump and how many times can he bench 225 and whatever position, whatever player, and still, I don't want to say they miss, but you look at guys, Stephon Diggs, right, is a 5th-round draft pick. Devontae Adams is a 4th-round draft pick. Christian Benford, like the amount of guys that slip through that because of something that somebody didn't like, they didn't get their hips low enough in one drill and it slides, or they had one bad game in college. And you are, like I said, the perfect example. You had a 9-year NFL career with the Buffalo Bills, started all across the offensive line except for left tackle. And this isn't a new, my point in that is it's not a new story. You would think that there's something out there somewhere that somebody can see to be like, no, that kid's going to be able to play. And that kid's going to struggle, even though he's an elite athlete.
Football players are drafted after the 4th round, Joe. After the 3rd round.
Yeah.
4th and on is where football players are picked. No offense to our colleague, John Fina, who was a 1st-round pick.
That's a great statement.
He validated his position by playing a long, long time at a high, high level.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that early round picks aren't football players. But the point I'm trying to make is guys that get picked late in the draft are the dudes that show up on tape, and you're like sitting there going, why is this guy showing up the way he is? And the fact that he's this big, his arms aren't long enough, his hands aren't big enough, his bench isn't good enough, he's not fast enough, but yet he keeps showing up on tape and he keeps having production. And that, to me, is Benford is the poster child for that. At some point in time, and that's what the beautiful thing about training camp is, at some point in time, we get away from all these crazy ass tests and all this underwear stuff, and we actually put pads on and they actually play football. And you'll hear a lot of the old school guys say, well, they're until somebody has a test that shows their heart, they're never going to get this right. Well, you can call it heart. Personally, to me, these late round guys are football players.
Yeah.
And this, to anyway, and this is my analysis of it, Joe, and you could look at it differently or not. you can only have so many superstars on a team.
True.
You know, it's that kind of that 10-80-10 deal. You got 10 that are, you know, you count on them. They're great. They're elite. You've got 80% in the middle that are your blue collar type dudes that show up to work every day with the lunch pail and they do all the dirty stuff that nobody else wants to do. And you got the 10% that's a pain in the ass that you're trying to get into the 80 or the upper 10, right?
Right.
And, you know, that to me is great. Championship football teams are built in the 80%. They're not necessarily built in the 10%.
Yeah, no, that's actually very, very well said. I was listening to WGR 55, and I don't remember who I was listening to or who they were interviewing at the time, but they talked about Christian Benford as he was just a topic of conversation this past week and has been obviously in Buffalo for a while and on every show that's out there, even like our shows and whatnot. And Villanova they had a football program. The football program went away and then they brought back the football program. Right. And there hasn't been a whole lot of like guys that have come out of Villanova. There was one other one. I can't remember who it was. Some
guy named Howie Long.
Howie Long, yeah, a long time ago. There was somebody from the recent iteration as well.
It was Bryant Westbrook, the tailback that played for the Eagles and all that. And then there was also a wide receiver that played for the Atlanta Falcons. His name slips my mind, but he was up recently as well. But
the comment was they in his senior year, in Benford's senior year, they played a couple big schools, and there was a notice that Benford didn't blink, like his game didn't slack off when he played a couple bigger schools with elite talent, and that was kind of a sign early on that this kid could probably play in the NFL.
Oh, definitely, and I mean that's a big thing for FCS schools. FCS stands for Football Championship Series, which is the real and right way to have the playoffs in football. FBS is still trying to figure out a way to do it correctly, but everybody's too greedy and wants their hand in the cookie jar. But no, I mean, FCS guys, that's what it's all about. You want to show out against the great competition that you play against. And when you play those FBS teams as the 1AA school, you know, that's your chance to shine. And nowadays, I mean, here's the deal. Benford gets picked in 2022. If Benford's at Villanova in 2024, he's probably at Penn State, Boston College, or Syracuse, or someplace else in 2022 because of the transfer portal, right?
Right.
And that wasn't quite the thing yet when he was coming out of senior year. But no, I mean, you know, there's talent everywhere, and kudos to the Bills scouting department for finding this guy.
Yeah, very good. So what does this do for the Buffalo Bills front office and their roster for 2025? I think we know. I'll ask you about 2026 in a second, but they're in the same spot, right? There's just no scramble. There's no scramble drill to can we get him done before his final season?
Right, exactly. There's no scramble drill for that. Now you can play. You can put your emphasis upon a guy like James Cook, in other areas of guys who are trying to get done. But the thing that it does to me anyway. And this is something that John brought up a couple of weeks ago, and I kind of poo-pooed the deal. But it was funny. As soon as the Christian Benford signing came out, my phone blew up, and it was oh shoot, I'm going to go ahead. It was Marlon.
Marlon Turner.
As soon as it happened, Marlon, and he was super excited, as was I. And then he brought up, and here's the deal. This is exactly what I was going to get into. Joseph brought it up in the comments, and I'm going to put it up. Actually, you're going to have to put it up, Joe. I don't know why I can't put it up.
That's strange. Yeah, you should be able
here it is. I got it now. Okay. Joseph says this: will Douglas be back after the draft? It's the first thing Marlon said after the signing. He goes, and it gives the Bills the money. If they have to do it, they can bring back Rasul Douglas with the money they saved on this signing. And right. I agree with Joseph 100%. And it's the point I was just getting ready to make, Joe, is the fact that now, do you sign Douglas now? No, you don't, because you kind of have to watch and see what happens in the draft this year, because this opens up a big door for the Bills. I think the Bills are in a really, really good situation because I think they have enough firepower if they want to, because they're sitting there at 30. They've got pick 56 and 62 in the second round. Now, they don't have any thirds, but they have two fours at 109 and 132, and they've got 3 in the fifth round at 69, 70, and 73, 173. they have enough firepower if they feel as a franchise we have to go get the other bookend at corner, and a guy like Will Johnson or somebody slips down to 15, 16, they can move up to get him if they want to.
Mm-hmm.
But the funny thing is that there's also enough talent as far as low first round, second round grades on cornerbacks, very good cornerbacks, and defensive tackles to where they ultimately could do exactly what the hell they did last year and trade out trade out a 30
Yep.
and get that third round pick that they don't have and maybe another second and stockpile even more. I think the funny thing about this draft, and it's really something we got to look at, I've been watching tape on players. There are certain players I like more than others, and I'll probably get into that a little bit in the Big O show as we get closer to the draft. But the thing is, getting Benford lined up, having enough money to sit around to where if you need to get Rasul Douglas signed, you look at the other cornerback position, Joe, is probably the term was always running back by committee.
Yeah.
The other quarterback spot could be cornerback by committee. If you bring Douglas in, you brought Jackson back, and you've got Ingram sitting there. If you had to, you can keep an old guy, his reps down, his play numbers down, like Douglas, to keep him fresher as the year goes on by playing Jackson and playing Ingram. If you had to do that because you went ahead and you picked a D tackle at 30 or you traded out of the first round. So there's this whole thing has opened to me the book just wide open for the Bills, possibilities in the draft come April.
Yeah, for sure. It's an interesting draft in 2022 as well. I was looking for just the free agent moves that the Bills have completed, and there isn't an updated list out there that I could find while we were talking. But it led me back to 2022, which basically, if you look at that draft class, Kair Elam, obviously they just traded away to Dallas. James Cook working on a contract with him. Who knows if he'll get signed, but obviously Beane said that we were at the table trying to negotiate. Couldn't get it done, moved on to the next guy. Terrell Bernard, re-signed. Khalil Shakir, re-signed. Matt Ariza, back in the NFL, unfortunate situation, but is an incredible punter in the NFL. Christian Benford, re-signed. Luke Tenuta, not in the NFL, I don't think. And then Balin Spector. What a home run of a draft. I mean, you can miss on your first-round draft pick when you hit as many times, when you get that many bingos on the other ones, right?
Right, exactly. And that's where the heartbeat of your team is built.
Right.
As much as we like to go out and sign big name free agents, when you have a quarterback that commands as much of the cap as Josh Allen does, the heartbeat of your team is going to be built in April at the draft, and you've got to continue to do that. And I change my mind every day, Joe. I don't know how you are. I mean, some days I wake up, I'm like, man, it's a defensive tackle. We've got to get another guy inside. Then there's days I wake up, I'm like, Beane swinging for the fences. We're going to trade up and either get a defensive tackle that we want that maybe we're worried about slipping, or get that cornerback. And then there's days I wake up, I'm like, hell, man, they're on cash preservation mode. We're trading out of one, and we're going to get an extra 2 and add that 3 that we don't have anymore and go from there. So there's no telling. There's no telling.
There's not. It'd be nice to know. I'm not a draft Nick per se, but so the Bills have 30, 56, and 62. And you wonder if they want to move up, right? From 30, how far can they get up, taking one of their 2s, packaging it with their first. I mean, I don't think it's going to get them into the far into the 20s per se. 56 and 62 aren't exactly great positions to be in from a draft standpoint. But there's also the possibility they could draft somebody like each one of those positions. They could package the 2s, move someplace, they could move out. But to your point, similar for me, I feel like defensive line, D tackle is still the spot you want to be with that first overall pick for the Bills. And then from there, you've got to, it's got to go DL, edge, corner. I just don't know what order it goes in.
I don't think that, to me anyway, with the Bosa signing and then also the signing of Hoyt, even though he's missing 6 games, I just don't see how edge trumps corner in this draft. I find that hard to believe, but it could happen. Like I said, I mean, you never know who might show up there. I mean, you might have a guy show up and you've got to take him. Yeah. I think ultimately, Joe, the whole thing comes down to this. when Bobby Babbage Jr. and everybody sitting in that room, what is your philosophy going into the 2025 season? Do you say, well, it doesn't matter to us who's playing corner. Yes, we have to have good corners, but we ultimately realize that if we've got dogs up front and we've got 8 of them, 7 of them that we can rotate through and we can get to the quarterback without blitzing and doing a bunch of crazy stuff, that makes our cornerback room better, right?
Right.
So do they have that philosophy, or is it we need to make sure we have that guy outside because we put so much on him? So that's the thing, is unless we're sitting in those meetings, it's hard to really forecast what they think. Me personally, you know what I'm about. If I'm a general manager of an NFL team, we might suck everywhere else, but we're going to be damn good up front on offense, and we're going to be damn good up front on defense. I'll have cat daddies at offensive line and D line. Now everybody else might be complete ass and not be able to play dead in the cowboy movie, but those guys will be really, really good. Really good.
We just need to duplicate history again, much like we did with Kair, Elam, and Benford. It happened with John McCargo and Kyle Williams. McCargo was a first-round draft pick, and Kyle Williams went, I think, in the 5th round,
right,
and ended up playing for, I don't even know, 12, 13 years.
And that's the poster child of what I was talking about earlier. At 4th round and on, that's where football players are drafted. Kyle Williams is one of the most ultimate football players and football guys you can imagine. And if you're a GM in the NFL, you better start getting your butt down to Baton Rouge and scouting LSU defensive linemen, because Kyle Williams is coaching the defensive line at LSU now.
Yeah.
And you best believe those cats will be prepared, and they will be hard, and they will play at a high level.
Super good. Great conversation. The Buffalo Bills, as we have been talking about this whole entire show, have re-signed Christian Benford along with a slew of other players, as well as Josh Allen. But the topic for this show has been Christian Benford. Any final thoughts before I get us out of here, Jer?
No, I think that, obviously it's been this, at least with our own guys, it's been kind of Christmas in March, so to speak. I mean, I think that, Beane's done a wonderful job of getting these key pieces signed back for long-term deals without breaking the bank. We still have a whole ton of draft picks sitting there that we can go ahead and manipulate to try to continue to build this roster through the draft. Again, I wake up every day knowing that number 17 is our quarterback. That locks that whole thing up as well. So, no, I really, I'm excited about it. Again, I mean, as we go from now and we do the Big O shows every week, and this week I'm not quite sure we're going to talk about. We might talk about draft value this week if I can find the formulas, because there is a sheet out there, and it was made famous by Jimmy Johnson and the Cowboys, where if you want to pick up to this, if you're going to move up to this spot, this is the value of that pick. And if I can find it, we'll talk about it this week on the show. But we're going to talk at some point about what it would take to move up into 15 in that area for the Buffalo Bills if they decided they really wanted to do that. So we might talk about that. We will get into draft prospects, especially positions of need, corner, defensive tackle, defensive end, and some things like that. But as you know, Joe, man, this whole thing, hell, we could be sitting here, 30 minutes, 20 minutes after the Bills make their first round pick with an instant reaction show talking about how they just drafted the wide receiver out of Texas.
Yeah.
So
you just never know.
You just never know, man. You never know.
Yeah. In an off season again, where Brandon Beane says there probably isn't going to be any big signings, he re-signs all these, like Kair Elam, or not Kair, sorry, Khalil Shakir, obviously Christian Benford, Terrell Bernard, Josh Allen.
Right. But I do think this, and I think this does not need to. I think this does not need to be overlooked, and nobody really talks about it except a couple of people, and the people that talk about it are the ones that really do a hell of a job with this whole thing and looking at the franchise as a whole. I don't think that we should sleep on the fact that they've made 3 hires this offseason that are centered around the defensive line.
Yeah, very good.
So it's quite obvious that franchise understands that they have got to get better up front.
Yeah. How about this? Bella says, happy anniversary, Jerry, John, and Joe. 1 year coming up for this network, for the show. Thank you, and go Bills. April something. When was our first show? It was April. I could probably go back on YouTube and find out, but it was.
Just find out whenever Vox Media told us to take a hike, and then we can figure it out.
Should we send them a letter and thank them?
Yeah, I think so. This has been great. I mean, and you know what? If I seem a little more giddy and a little more bubbly and the color of my skin's a little better, I upgraded all my computer equipment this week. I've got multiple screens. It looks like a damn air traffic control center in my office right now, which is beautiful. But the reason why is because you guys have done such a wonderful job of supporting us, and we really, really appreciate you for it. Yeah. And again, hit the like, hit subscribe, review the shows, tell your friends about it, and we're just looking forward to be able to bring you more top quality content as the year goes on.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in to the Overreaction Buffalo Sports Show on the Overreaction Sports Network, powered by Believe. It is so good, as Jerry said, to have every single one of you guys joining us, and thank you for being a part of this show every single week and being kind of like the thing that keeps us going. Got a lot of good stuff coming up for you this off season and this year, so please stay tuned. As Bella said, this is we're coming up on our 1 year anniversary as being like full tilt. Doing Overreaction alone. So, but it's so good to have all you guys. Love you. Appreciate you. For me, for John, for Jerry, for all of us here at Overreaction. Go Bills.
Much love. Go Bills.
Go Bills.